past few years in Cuba, an independent kind of journalism has begun to flourish. On uncharted terrain, with no ground rules established, no red lines fixed. Raul Cárdenas is part of a new generation of bloggers. 5 years ago, he and a group of students at Matanzas University, 2 hours from the capital, set up La Joven Cuba, the Young Cuba, a blog where contributors started taking veiled shots at the state and reporting on what the official media chose to ignore.
When
I started at university, I'd never seen an email. I didn't know what the internet was. I'd barely even used a computer. One day, my friends and I, who were part of the Young Communist Party, realized that we didn't have a forum to share our thoughts. We thought a blog was an option, and we set it up without really knowing what a blog was. Within 3 or 4 months, there was an explosion of hits. A blog by young people was something really quite extraordinary.
Joven Cuba set an example from the outset thanks to its irreverence. For example, when they took the authorities to task for a blackout on a story about 30 patients who died in a psychiatric hospital in the town of Missouri, they'd usually publish the blog at 3 in the morning so that they had enough bandwidth on the university's network, but the authorities got wild and shut them down. And then something surprising happened. A photo appeared on the net showing the Joven Cuba bloggers with the vice president, Miguel Díaz-Canel, Raul Castro's likely successor, hugging and telling them that they should carry on exactly as they are. Straight away, Matanzas University restored their access and they were back online.
When a politician like the vice president in Cuba defends you publicly, it implies personal responsibility and has an impact on what you'll do. So the challenge was how to continue doing what we were doing after his visit. Some people might think that having a relationship with politicians will change you. So the challenge is to keep doing the same afterwards. And that's what we've been trying to do, to maintain our editorial line.
That's become easier in Cuba because times are changing and a middle ground is emerging. Despite the fact that computer equipment may look like something out of a bygone era, bloggers here are updating the status of the revolution by critiquing it from the inside. The issue is that that revolution, the digital one, is yet to truly arrive. Here in Havana, there is little connectivity and communication is still very much face-to-face. That too is set to change as internet companies vie for opportunities in what promises to be a new era in political and technological communications. Cuba is one of the least wired countries in the Western Hemisphere. Estimates differ, but only 3 to 25% of the population can log on. And even then, it costs $2 an hour. That's half the average weekly pay package. For the outsider, what's striking about Havana is the lack of mobile phones. How few people are transfixed by handheld devices, the way people are in any other major city around the world. The Cuban government has blamed low internet penetration on the US trade embargo, a lack of equipment. Critics say it's simply about shutting down debate. One of those critics is dissident journalist Joanny Sanchez, thorn in the side of the Cuban government. Ever since 2007, when she started her blog Generation Y, she's been featured widely in media outlets around the world. Hers is an unapologetic call for a radical change of the system. Just this year, she started a digital news site, but the government has blocked it for users on the island.
The usual dynamic on the blogosphere is to find blogs on the extremes. There were no nuanced opinions online. There was only black or white. Cuba is paradise or Cuba is the devil. We couldn't conform to this dynamic because Cuba is not like this. Cuba is a country with virtues, defects and colors like any other. This is a country of mulattoes, not a country of black or white people. We had to project that on our blog.
Let me tell you a joke. The Pope's walking along the Malecon on a windy day and his hat flies off. The next day, Castro walks on water to pick his hat up and gives it back to him. The Vatican press announces that the Pope has performed a miracle, giving Fidel the power to walk on water. The Cuban press declare that Fidel is God. He's walking on the sea. Joanny Sanchez turns up and says Fidel is so old, he can't even swim anymore.
Ever since Raul Castro came to power, calling for fewer secrets, more debate, Cuba's online voices have multiplied. Beyond the likes of Sanchez, outlets like Cartas desde Cuba, La Chiringa de Cuba, Espacio Laico, all current affairs blogs, and the curious case of Paquito Rodriguez. By day, he's the director of Trabajadores, the workers' newspaper. By night, he writes a blog, Paquito el de Cuba, Paquito the one from Cuba. There, he hones in on one of those subjects his revolutionary paper would have little interest in publishing: gay rights.
5 years ago, I started the blog, which is very different from what I do as the director of the state paper, where I cover economic, social, and political topics. On my blog, I talk about homosexuality, paternity, and the fact that I'm HIV positive. In a way, I lead a double life as a journalist because the blog has become an alternative media space for me.
Paquito got into trouble recently because he criticized Cuba for having voted against a resolution defending sexual diversity at the UN. Paquito and another gay activist ended up meeting with the foreign minister, and the minister ended up apologizing for their vote and went and changed it. This can give you some idea of the kind of influence that the blogosphere can have.
Te estoy diciendo el impacto que tiene esa blogosfera.
Because for all the connectivity problems in Cuba, things are changing. Earlier this year, the country's first government-funded wireless hub was opened here in Havana. Since then, dozens more have appeared, for those who can afford it. And the government says it plans to get broadband to half of Cuban homes in the next 5 years. The changes are part of a bigger story, a historic political thaw with the US, and the backers of the revolution, who also defended the government's blockade on news and information, are having to surrender territory. This is a story that, as they say, will run and run. And Cuba's growing band of bloggers cannot wait to cover it.
More voices on the download now on Cuban bloggers and their impact on journalism there.
Some governments affirm that it's not independent journalism in Cuba. On this matter, I think it is more than 10 years we have independent journalism in Cuba. I think as internet connectivity will spread across the island, more forms of independent journalism will come out.